name, please?
Faisal Khan.
Can you spell that for me?
Faisal.
And what do you do, please?
I'm a counsellor and I'm also was a governor recently at two schools in Laisterdyke and Uncut.
And you're a counsellor for which party?
This, well, independent route now. And so this walk back from
And are you standing in the court? So, just a general question to start then. What do you think of the standard of education here in Bradford?
I think it's really, really poor. If you look at Bradford, the league tables, Bradford's 100 out of 108. So, in terms of standards, it's something I'm really, really passionate about, and it's something I've been a governor for 8 years, and I've been involved in trying to encourage members of the community to get involved in schools to raise standards.
Do we need more teaching of Islamic beliefs?
No, I think what we do need to do is just raise standards, and that's looking at behaviour, teaching and learning, and also meeting the needs of children within schools. So if that's halal food, then that's halal food. That's just meeting the needs, and if it's a Muslim child or a Jewish child or a Hindu child or just a child, it's just meeting their needs.
Okay, now you were on the board of governors here at Laisterdyke. That board of governors has been sacked. Tell us why you believe that.
I think it's because we were holding the school to account, and I understand that it's not always welcome if a school isn't, if the leadership isn't that strong in terms of its capability. And certainly in this instance here, what governors were saying is we want a proper recruitment process following the national DfE guidance, which would mean for something like a vice principal, you'd advertise that nationally and externally, and you'd get the best candidates, because what we want is the best staff to come here to have high standards. And certainly what we don't want is just people just being promoted from internal. Surely they can also apply alongside other candidates. There needs to be a proper, robust process. I feel really passionate about that, to make sure that we follow the guidance properly. And I think if you do, then as a governing body, you work together with the leadership team, you can raise standards in the school and you can become outstanding.
Okay, so I've got a letter here from the school which was sent out to parents when the governing body was changed, and it says that a report by Ofsted last year identified an urgent need for governors to determine and address improvements in their own practice. And then that another Ofsted visit happened in April this year. Governance was the focus, and as a result of that, the governing body was dismissed. How do you respond to what they've said?
I mean, certainly the Ofsted report that came out in September addressed a number of concerns, including governance, including the senior leadership team. We, as governors, took that on board. We organised our own training, even though we had a representative from the local authority who was supposed to provide bespoke training. They just didn't provide that, so they failed in their duty to support us as governors. But as governors, we took it upon ourselves to organise our own training, on monitoring evaluation, and raise online figures. And the local authority, the best they could come back with was, you used 2012 data. So rather than praising us and saying, well done, they said, they criticised us for using 2012 data, when 2013 data just simply wasn't available at the time of the training. We also, as a governing body, when the chair pulled together the chairs of the various subcommittees, and we started to progress things really, really quickly. We had an external review of governance. We recognised that actually we made massive improvements from the initial report to March. Unbelievably, the local authority officer said the SLT had improved in 6 months, and the governors had not improved at all. So he deliberately, even though he'd been in meetings, he'd seen all the stuff that we'd done, had deliberately ignored all of that. And it just beggars belief, how we can have any kind of trust in the local authority if it behaves in such a way.
So the local authority wanted you out?
I ultimately believe so, yeah, because from all the evidence I've seen now, from the hidden meetings that we weren't privy to, where they said they'd raised concerns, for the kind of things that we were told, and then when we actually checked, found out not to be true at all, you start to question what's the real motive for removing us. Because at the end of the day, the local authority has a responsibility both to governors and the principal. And I think you can't just always blame governors for poor performance. So for example, Bellevue Boys, again, an IEB was served on Bellevue Boys 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago. And that was, again, a similar kind of story where governors were beginning to hold to account that school. And again, very similar, the chair of governors wasn't told that Ofsted was coming in, and then that was used against him to say, well, you didn't turn up to Ofsted. And likewise here you said, that Ofsted came back in, it was about governance. Well, nobody told governors it was about governance. So it's a bit like going into an exam and you don't know what the subject is, because as governors you come in, it's about general governance, that's what about the school and its performance, etc.
So you've said you believe the local authority wanted you out. Why might that be the case then?
I think at the end of the day, as governors, when we start to hold head teachers to account, and certainly the head teacher had raised her concerns, saying that we were holding the school back. And how do you translate and understand that? But it feels like the conversations were going on between the head teacher and the local authority, unbeknown to us as governors. And yet, any dialogue that we tried to do with the local authority, there was no dialogue other than being informed of what they were going to do to us. To me, that's not a healthy relationship. What it should be a two-way conversation. It should be about improving standards within Bradford. And I think as long as that relationship continues forever, I think Bradford schools will languish, because if a governing body is not functioning, yes, serve an IB. But if a head teacher isn't, then support the governing body to make sure that you can drive improvements. So, for instance, we asked for a national lead, an NLE, National Lead in Education, to support the head teacher here. The local authority dragged their feet on it. We asked for a professional clerk so our governing body minutes would be accurately recorded. They dragged their feet on it. So, as governors, we have worked tried to work with the local authority, and we felt at every point the local authority hasn't done that. They really haven't had a dialogue. And I think they'd made their mind up a long time ago. And I think it goes back to this decision about recruitment. That's my honest belief.
So that's what's happened at this school?
Absolutely.
What about other schools in Bradford, and what's happened to governors there in terms of some of those perhaps being changed?
Well, the only one I can think of is Miriam Lord Primary School and Bellevue Boys. And again, governors beginning to question and ask, hold to account, whether it's around finances, how money's been spent, whether it's being accrued beforehand. But all this is normal DFE guidance stuff, and you'd expect a local authority to support a governing body. Now, what concerns me is, having read the Telegraph, it talks about senior officials having some kind of hand in this, and I'd really like to understand what hand they have, because if the message is that if you're a Muslim, then you're not welcome in the governing body, I think it sends out a really poor message out there. And then, having spoken to governors out there, already governors are saying, well, what's the point being in the governing body? Because if we do follow the DFE guides, we follow the rules, we're still subject to this kind of harassment and then kind of behaviour.
So, do you feel that Muslim governors are being targeted, victimised, harassed? How would you put it?
Well, it certainly feels like the term used as a witch hunt, and it feels like that. I'm trying to understand, the kind of, if people look at the evidence, the kind of questions we were asking. I was asking about teaching and learning, good or better, how it's moderated, and the information I was getting back just wasn't happening. I was getting it after 3 times of asking. I got a coloured sheet of paper with little boxes on. You ask any governor throughout the country, and they'll tell you that's totally unacceptable. Now, if that kind of questioning is seen as a threat, then I think seriously Bradford schools will not improve, because we need to really work to a high standard, and I expect better. Certainly the other school I was involved in, we went from 29% to 50% in 3 years. When 10 years prior to that, the results bobbled at 29%, 30%. So it's about raising expectation and raising standards.
Do you believe that if a white Christian team of governors had done the same things as you, then the outcome would have been the same?
It certainly feels that way, yes.
Right. So you feel that if a team of governors from a different race, religion had been here, they would still be here?
I think so, yeah.
Right.
Having read the articles, having read the national press, that's what it feels like. Having now read what officials have been saying in the Telegraph article, that's what it feels like.
Okay. Let's move on to the newspaper articles then.
Yeah.
There are specific claims that you were trying to Islamise this school by interfering with staff appointments and the curriculum. Things like, you know, making girls sit at the back of the class. Is any of that true?
Well, they do talk about those things, but if you read the article carefully, it talks about those things in Birmingham. And having spoken to Andrew Gilligan, he admitted to me that actually his anonymous sources were not raising those kind of issues in the schools in Bradford. So he hadn't made that link, even though he's written an article in a particular way to give that impression. Certainly none of those issues at these particular schools. We don't have girls sat at the back. We teach a full curriculum, you know, drama, art, you know, that's taught. So all of those, all those issues that have been raised, we have none of those at this particular school. You know, and actually, with the head teacher, we worked quite hard. I think we talked about sex education. That was a concern that the parents raised. They weren't happy about. You know, quite responsibly, as governors and the head teacher, we sat down, we took their concerns on board. We reviewed all the material. We then met with parents, and parents, you know, we brought them on board. And so it was a collaborative effort, and they were quite happy for the material that we were going to teach, and that's what we did.
One of the newspaper articles says that you personally, have led constant attacks to drive out head teachers in Bradford. Is that true?
No, it's not true. And it also misquotes me as well, because it says that I said I removed a head teacher. I didn't. That head teacher actually was headhunted to another school. She didn't succeed there. She went to another school in Halifax, and I believe she's doing well, so, you know, all the rest to her really. But, you know, I've never been part of anything where we've actually had a disciplinary or anything's been raised against a particular head teacher. There's been nothing of the kind. So completely misquoted. And it, unfortunately, he misquotes the percentage. He says 49% when the head teacher left. It's actually 29%. And so, for me, that's 1% below the floor target that the Labour government set in 2011.
So to use the words from the newspapers, you personally are interested in Islamifying Bradford schools.
No,
what's your reaction to that?
Totally, that's just totally untrue. What I'm interested in is raising standards. And if even the video, I know how it's been quoted, if you look at it, it talks about raising standards. And what I always encourage people, because I'm so passionate about this, is that 30% is unacceptable. We need to be having these schools performing outstanding, you know, well above national average. And the children are capable. This excuse, this poverty of aspiration that says the kids in the socially, economically deprived areas, and these kids can't do it, irrespective of their background, whether they're Muslim or Christian or secular, these children can do it. And it's all about good quality teaching, and it's about putting the right standards in place, putting the right systems in place. And that's what it's about. And if a head teacher is not capable of doing it, then they should move on and let somebody who's really, really good at it, irrespective of their race and religion. And all the interviews I've been involved in, I've never employed a Muslim head teacher, so the facts on the ground say different.
There's another Ofsted report due out on Tuesday about this school. We hear it's going to have devastating criticism of Laisterdyke School. A lot of that happened on your watch while you were a governor.
Well, I haven't seen the report, so it's difficult to comment, but I can guess from some of the issues that were raised with us as governors and some of the false stuff that was put out. For instance, when we were trying to deal with the responding to the IEB, we actually hired an education specialist that deals with IEBs and a legal guy, and that cost money. And we had that. We went to a governing body. We had that approved. It was a democratic process. Went to the finance government. It was approved there as well. Nobody raised any issues. The principal didn't raise any issues. The business finance manager didn't raise any issues. Yet the principal took it upon herself then to send that information, a concern, to the local authority. And you begin to question, you know, why that was sent when it had all been approved, hadn't been raised with governments, and that report came back critical, saying that we hadn't followed the procedures, when in fact we had, because the information that was given was half false. 2 days after the Ofsted inspection, a report came back from the local authority saying there was nothing wrong with the finances. So that information was used both from the IEB and it was used from the Ofsted report to malign governors, in my opinion. Yet 2 days afterwards, you know, there was nothing to be found. We'd actually followed correct procedures and followed national guidance. And as I've always said, it's all about standards.
Okay, final question. And the papers claim that the investigation that's going on in Birmingham is to be widened to Bradford schools. Do you know anything about that?
Don't know anything about that. I expect that, though. Having read all these articles, I expect the team now to swoop into Bradford and cause complete mayhem. I think it just needs to be mindful that, at the end of the day, students are about to do their GCSEs, and to me, that's my concern, is that, please do not try to destabilise these schools. Staff are working really, really hard. It's all about raising attainment. We're talking about the life chances of children here. So whoever's behind this, stop playing politics with children's lives.
Thank you very much. Great. Okay, so just tell us what you think needs to happen now this governing body's been set.
I think we need answers, really, because both nationally, in terms of the senior officials' role in the role of governance here, and also locally, I think we need an investigation to understand how this has come about, how governors were removed. Certainly we feel that the process wasn't fair, it wasn't transparent in any way, and certainly the evidence isn't being listened to. We've been ignored in this whole process, and we really want somebody who's impartial to look at the evidence, and we can provide that evidence, to whoever that is. And if it means a judicial review, local authority, that was something I'd really welcome.
Okay, that's great.
Great.